next, we're talking with the celebrity historian, Mr. Raffi Andonian. Stick around. Good morning and welcome back to North Dakota Today. Well, as you guys know, Sophia is headed out the door to Miss America, and with the finals set for this weekend, we decided to behold the history of pageants with the guy who makes history beautiful. Please welcome celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. Good morning, Raffi.
Good morning. Here I am, ready to compete in my own crown.
They crowned you already?
That's right. I was like crown myself.
I love it. You know, I think you're pretty qualified to compete or to judge, but let's talk about the history of pageants first. How far back did they really go?
I would say it's about a 19th to 20th century thing. So here's what I would connect it to first. It's P.T. Barnum, you know, the circus guy that's known the ultimate showman in American history, right? So he tries to do various pageants, if you will, from judging beauty, not just of women, which actually he failed at that. Believe it or not, it did not take on because it was seen as kind of distasteful. But he did do like dogs and chickens and kids in the context of that, believe it or not. So he was trying these different things. It didn't really work out because it wasn't the right time, I would say, in the 1850s. Now, later on, where it gets picked up is kind of seaside towns. You know, think of attractions on the on the coast. In the 1880s, you have some attempts of that, but they're still failing because they're seen as not quite kind of becoming of the way to idealize womanhood, if you will. But where it starts to succeed is what becomes known as Miss America. Actually, is the first one in Atlantic City, New Jersey, in 1921. So why does it start to take off in the 20s? Well, think about it. You have the Roaring 20s. This is a time of pop culture and the it girl,
female independence.
Mass media. Think about in the 20s, you have the women get the right to vote, right? So this is a time when kind of there's a lot of barriers for women that are being broken, right? The social norms. So now there's kind of more room for its success. What's funny about it, though, is Atlantic City kind of started as kind of like a group of hotel owners that came together trying to extend beyond the Labor Day weekend, the summer season, if you will. So the fact that Miss America, like this weekend, is back to the weekend after Labor Day is like perfect for the historical, kind of fitting the historical trend, if you will, or historical origin.
Yeah.
But New York Times reported that there were 150,000 people that showed up to this multi-day event. Now, it wasn't just a beauty pageant that took place. There were multiple parades and balls and festivals and things like that. And here's what's funny. Everyone was dressed in swimsuits is what the story reports. So the notion of the swimsuit being associated with pageants, which I know now Miss America has moved away from that, but originally that notion, that's where it gets associated because it was on the coast, on the beach, and everyone was in swimsuits already. Now, the women that you're seeing on your screen there, they were called bathing beauties when the New York Times referred to them in that first pageant. But that started a trend in that historical context that we're talking about.
So this photo, clearly from way back when, and the women look so much different than the contestants we see on today's stage. So how have the ideas of beauty changed over time?
Well, here's what's going to blow your mind. All right. So let's go back to the ancient world. And in ancient Greece, you have a lot of mythology about beauty, right? Think about the gods for beauty. Think about the statues that we still see today that are supposed to be idealized. What do you notice about those statues? There's a heck of a lot of men, right?
Yeah, there are.
So believe it or not, there's not a record that we have of the ancients doing so for women, but for men, absolutely. So they were doing what we call pageants, judging of men on beauty in the ancient world. So very different than what we might think. Another place that I would draw sort of the notions of this sort of beauty changing is the May Day concept in medieval England. That you would elect a queen who was supposed to be the most beautiful and also most representative. That's what these parades would lead to. When you think about it, we still do it with homecoming, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that this notion of beauty starts to change, not just physically, because you can see that they're very different, but the notion of what it symbolizes. I'll give you a couple other examples here in the U.S. For example, when George Washington, when he becomes president and he's going over, to the Capitol, which is at that point is going to New York City, and what he sees along the way many times was these women that were dressed in all white. That was supposed to represent purity and purity in the virtuous sense of the early republic. If you look at Lady Columbia, was a woman that represents freedom, back to the sort of ancient symbol of this, goddess, or this mythological beauty in the United States. It represents freedom, purity, civilization, as the United States saw it when it was expanding out west. So that's also a notion of beauty, is this angelic, civilized, sort of pure woman. And so all of that is sort of playing into what the period we were talking about earlier, when it was failing in the late 19th century. So in the 1920s, when this takes off, one of the notions of beauty that's important is the purity concept, is this concept of being virtuous, being moral. And so they went out of their way to try to prove that. One way they try to do that is the women did not wear makeup, because makeup at the time was seen as something that someone that was of a lower social class would do, and they would use that to maybe lie about their social status so they can trick a man into getting married, a higher status man. Believe it or not, that's right, because makeup was supposed to be looking like it's hiding who you really are. Beauty was supposed to come from within, not on the exterior. This is a notion of beauty that is at the time. And yet there's this conflicting thing, because by the 1930s, I've seen the video in Texas, you have this in a local pageant, not Miss America, you have a wooden cutout of the ideal woman's shape, and the contestants are having to walk through it to fit into it. So sometimes there's this, conflict between that virtuousness and sort of the spectacle that it might be at times, especially locally. But that go back to that notion of makeup. The way that Miss America tried to sort of combat that was with the makeup and also the haircut. They wouldn't do a bob haircut, because that was seen as something that was trendy and worldly in 1920. These are supposed to be down-home, virtuous girls. In fact, when the first Miss America won, she was 15 years old, so beauty was also seen as youthful. And she wore an American flag. She was given an American flag to parade around in Atlantic City. And the labor leader of the time, Samuel Gompers, you might have heard his name, he was head of the AFL at the time, he said that this is what women, she's what womanhood represents. She represents what womanhood should be, which was being able to shoulder a burden, strong and red-blooded. So think about the different versions of beauty that you're seeing here. It goes beyond physical, it goes to what it represents. Now, to bring that makeup story full circle, what's fascinating is, because of the rising beauty culture, it flips the makeup story on its head. You had a lot of women entrepreneurs that that started businesses in makeup, became very wealthy, and changed the notion of makeup. There are hundreds of patents in makeup that are happening at this time. That's how they became rich. And the notion of makeup changed to become one that expresses individuality rather than covers something that you're trying to lie your way through social status, if you will.
And Raffi, I know that's exactly what we're going to see this weekend at the finals too. So thank you so much for walking us through history. Your time on our stage is done now, but you're always my Miss America.
Yeah, that's right. And go Miss North Dakota, right? That's what we want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Raffi. We'll see you very soon.
All right, thank you.
And you guys at home, don't go running off just yet.